Now that the pandemic's renter protection programs have expired, eviction filing rates are soaring.
The pandemic crisis is over, so what's next? The rental market apocalypse? Yes. The long-feared eviction tsunami is here. Since the pandemic era is over, government protections are gone. So the rental assistance has withered. Eviction filings increased nearly 80% from last year compared to the previous year. It's mainly causing chaos in the USA, but a similar phenomenon is happening in the UK and other parts of the world. This year, most US renters are in danger of losing their homes without knowing the risks they face. Right now, no more provisions are in place for protection, and prices have risen sharply throughout the country, with evictions on the rise. In many cities, eviction filing rates have more than doubled, and factors will further complicate affordability issues and push more Americans into the streets in the upcoming months. There are reports of a long-feared eviction tsunami in the States, and new data from the Princeton Eviction Lab show the depth of the crisis that will end many people's lives in 2023. After a pause caused by the pandemic's renter protection programs, eviction filings by landlords are roaring back, fueled by soaring rent prices and a long-running shortage of affordable rental units. As the pandemic kicked in and businesses shut down in mass all of a sudden, causing cutting the incomes of millions of workers. Many expected a massive wave of evictions. Instead, the federal government and state and local governments implemented unprecedented eviction moratoriums and ultimately billions of dollars in housing assistance to keep people accommodated. The bans have worked and eviction applications have plummeted nationwide, leaving at least 1.36 million cases unfiled, which would happen in a typical year. Now, however, the protection layers are gone and the dam has broken. The numbers go up everywhere, said Peter Hepburn, Associate Director of the Eviction Lab and Associate Professor of Sociology at Rutgers University in Newark. In 10 states and 34 cities tracked by Eviction Lab, eviction requests increased nearly 80% last year from the year before. What drives these numbers? First, all deportation protections during the pandemic are basically a thing of the past, Hepburn said. At the end of 2020, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention banned the deportation of people who had had a pandemic. The eviction moratorium isn't perfect, but it has helped millions of tenants stay. It was abolished by the Supreme Court in August 2021. State and local governments have enacted their own bans, but by the end of 2021, only 3 states have retained them. At this point, they're mostly gone. Los Angeles, one of the few places where there is no period, let her period end in March. So it is a catastrophe. Due to sky-high home prices and mortgage rates, renting has become the only option for many Americans. However, if you want to invest in multifamily real estate, this could be a glimmer in the dark cloud. Be it rates regulations, which own income-generating real estate such as apartment buildings, shopping malls, and office towers. They collect rent from tenants and pass it on to shareholders through the regular dividend payments. Will you try your luck? Then, under the Consolidated Allocation Act and the American Rescue Plan, the federal government allocated $46 billion in emergency rental assistance in 2021, paid out to renters just as the ban was lifted. Even though the safeguards were gone, plenty of money was available, Hepburn said. That played a big role in curbing eviction requests. But that money has been almost totally distributed, and no more money is coming in. So, what may be the reason behind the increasing eviction crisis? The housing crisis reflects the continuous problem of a lack of affordable housing, especially in urban areas. This crisis has been exacerbated by various economic and social factors. One of the main causes of the housing crisis is the increase in demand for housing due to population growth and urbanization. As more and more people move to the cities, the demand for housing increases, but the housing supply has not kept up with this demand. This has led to a shortage of available housing, driving prices up and making it difficult for many to find affordable housing. The gap between rich and poor in the US is the next factor contributing. As wealth inequality continues to grow, many people can't afford homes in desirable neighborhoods, leading to increased homelessness and a decline in the overall quality of life for many Americans. In addition, the cost of building and maintaining housing also contributes to the housing crisis. many developers struggled to build affordable housing due to high construction costs and strict zoning laws that make housing construction difficult in some areas. As a result, many developers are focusing on building luxury housing, which is more profitable but fails to solve the shortage of affordable housing. And finally, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated America's housing crisis. Many people have lost their jobs and are struggling to pay rent, leading to evictions and homelessness. The pandemic has also made it difficult for people to find affordable housing, as many landlords have increased rents or become more picky about who they rent to. The lack of help is currently colliding with a booming rental market as measured by the Consumer Price Index. Rents increased by 9% in 2022, driven by a pre-existing housing crisis, a shortage of 7.3 million affordable and available rental units, and inflation increased. In some US cities, eviction records have been much higher than what has been considered normal before the pandemic. Some filings may be pending cases while the ban is in place, but not everywhere, especially in places like Houston or Jacksonville, where pandemic protections are mostly like it doesn't exist. Las Vegas residents have long struggled to pay their growing rent in the pre-pandemic housing market simmering. This trend just continues. Tenants can't stand a rent increase and don't really have a right if the landlord wants to increase the rent after the lease expires, said Carmona, a landlord in Los Angeles. The long-anticipated eviction tsunami seems unlikely to materialize for the most part. It has now arrived, though people oppose it being equated with a natural disaster, to which Houstonians have many experiences to say. It was not a natural disaster, this was a man-made disaster, she said. It's greed. Worse yet, it may not be a passing storm. The fact that this establishes a new normal, worse than the one we had before the pandemic, is an unfortunate possibility, Hepburn said. Some places have learned from the pandemic and made lasting changes. Before the pandemic, 5 cities had adopted advisory rights in eviction proceedings. Since then, 3 states, Connecticut, Maryland, Washington, and several other cities have passed it. Philadelphia has created an eviction diversion program, while some defenders, like in New York, are fighting for justice. Overall, the housing crisis in the US is a complex issue caused by many economic, social, and political factors. Addressing this crisis will require a multifaceted approach that includes increasing the supply of affordable housing, addressing inequality between the rich and poor, and providing financial support to those struggling to survive. So, what can be done to mitigate a real estate crisis and recession? There are some logical yet foreseeable things you can do. Try to analyze your current financial situation, like reviewing your income, expenses, and debts to determine how much money you have to weather the economic storm. Focus on paying off high-interest debt like credit cards, car loans, and personal loans. This will free up more money for emergencies. Start depositing for your emergency funds. Set aside a portion of your monthly income to build an emergency fund. This can cover unexpected expenses or loss of income during a recession. If you have a mortgage, consider refinancing for lower interest rates. This can reduce your monthly payments and free up extra cash for emergencies. Invest in different fields. If you invest in real estate, consider diversifying your portfolio to include other types of investments such as stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Monitor the real estate market and economic indicators to stay informed of any changes affecting your financial situation. Take steps like these to prepare for the housing crisis and recession and protect your finances. As you have doubt, the proposal to spend more than a quarter of one's income on housing may be realistic for some, but it's not a long-term solution. However, these dynamics of change present potential opportunities for those willing to invest. Federal Reserve policies have far-reaching implications for the housing market, making real estate a long-term investment journey. These are indeed turbulent times, but as the saying goes, fortune favors the bold. So what are your thoughts on the rental market crisis? Let us know in the comments down below.